So in the first part of our session, we want to do something with the audience. If you could please check the chat box, we have some links pinned there. So we have 4 questions for the audience that we would like to be answered from you. The first question is, have you heard about the Bangladesh Delta Plan 2100? The second question is, which hotspot are you from, or if there is a hotspot that you are interested in? The third question is, if you are from a particular hotspot, or if you're interested in a particular hotspot, identify one problem from there that you would like to see solved under the Bangladesh Delta Plan. And then if you have a solution in mind, you could suggest that as well. And the last question is, how do you think the youth can be involved in the Bangladesh Delta Plan 2100? You can either scan the links which are given here, or the links are pinned in the chat box. All you have to do is click on the link and answer the questions for us. We will be displaying the results of these questions in the interactive session that we will be having later. So please, we would be really glad if you would cooperate with us and answer through the links. Thank you. If you have any questions, you can write it in the chat box, and my fellow participants will be answering to the questions. Now I will start my presentation. I'll be the first presenter. I have already introduced myself. So this is a screenshot of the session that we have attended virtually. Due to COVID, all of our sessions were held virtually. The Bangladesh Youth Action Track is actually organized by 3 parties. One of them is ECAT, the organization holding this Gobeshona conference. The other one is EKN, the Embassy of the Kingdom of the Netherlands in Bangladesh. And the third one is Wageningen University of Netherlands. So I would like to share 2 learning outcomes from the sessions that we have had. In the first session, we were given an introductory idea about what the Delta Plan is. And then we were told how, as a youth who are perhaps students or professionals in our fields, we can contribute to Bangladesh Delta Plan by giving our own inputs, or perhaps our ideas about what the policies should look like. So that was kind of the introductory session where we all were introduced to each other, and we got to know about the preliminary idea about the Bangladesh Delta Plan 2100. In the next session, we were given a more in-depth description of what the Bangladesh Delta Plan 2100 is about. For example, why do we need the Delta Plan, how the Delta Plan has been divided into hotspots, and what are the visions, missions, and goals, and then how the strategies work in this Delta Plan. So I'll be covering the vision, missions, goals, and strategic hotspots of the Delta Plan. So firstly, the vision of the Bangladesh Delta Plan is rather holistic and overarching. In the Delta Plan, we want to achieve safe, climate resilient, and prosperous Delta. Given how climate change is becoming an alarming issue with time, Bangladesh Delta Plan is rather timely with its vision. In the mission statement, we are focusing more on water and food security, economic growth with environmental sustainability, and also given that Bangladesh is rather prone to natural disasters and this vulnerability is increasing with climate change, we would also like to address that and also manage the resilience that we have towards natural disasters. Another important part of Bangladesh Delta Plan, since we're talking about deltas, so water governance and water resource management occupy a rather big part of the Bangladesh Delta Plan. So apart from having delta goals, this plan also has 3 higher level goals, which are in line with the Vision 2041 that we have, eliminating extreme poverty, becoming an upper middle income country, and also removing poverty in all its forms. These are the higher level goals that we have. What we will be focusing on is the delta goals. The first one is safeguarding against flood and climate change related disasters. The second one is water security. The third one is river systems and estuaries management. The fourth one is focused on wetlands and ecosystem promotion. The fifth one is concerned with governance of transboundary and inboundary rivers, while the sixth one is about focusing on land and water resources in its optimal form. Lastly, there are some strategies involved. There are some national level strategies, and then we have hotspots. In our youth action track, we have focused more on hotspots since a lot of us are from urban areas. We had participants from coastal zones as well. So for us, it was easier to share our own individual experiences and talk about how we have faced perhaps climate change related issues in our own daily life. So for hotspots, we had coastal zone, river systems, urban areas. Personally, I'm from the urban areas. So in the program, my area of work has been urban areas. And then we had Chittagong Hill Tracts, we had the Howrah flash flood areas and buried areas. Other than that, focusing on thematic strategies, we had agriculture, we had blue economy, we had renewable energy. So this is how, by focusing on particular strategies, the Bangladesh Delta Plan intends to solve the issues that we are facing right now. I will now give the floor to Prantor Bhaiya to explain the next part of the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. So one of the learning outcomes we have gained through this Delta Action Plan is to become a leader. To become a leader, there was a session like what we can do towards the society, what kind of plans, what kind of strategic approach we can apply. There was a discussion, and we have learned many things from him. Actually, how leadership works in the climate change and environmental protection areas, and what should be our goals. So as a leader, so there should have some approach, how we can approach the participations. What should be our main purpose is very important. And also the effective leaders provide the clarity of the purpose and motivates and guides the organization to realize the mission. We need to have a very specific mission so that we can reach the goal. It doesn't matter how big and small the mission is, but we need to have one particular mission in the beginning of any kind of leadership work. And regarding the positions, we always need to motivate all the participants and the stakeholders in between. And we should understand their feelings, what they are thinking. And we need to sum up all the things together. And we need to have this thing as an objective in the beginning. And then by step, we can work together as a team, always as a team, and reach the goal. And second thing was we had a very thing we learned about the adaptive leadership. It was the term very new for me. So it means that we need to adapt with the changing environments. And there could be many problems and approaches in the beginning. And we need to work with the situation and reach the individual goals. And as I mentioned earlier, the understanding the necessity of the purpose and the partners is very important. And also the experimental mindset is required to become a good leader. And the second thing was the longer term planning and the approaches scenarios. And the change and the water management in Bangladesh is huge, and there's lots of uncertainties there. And of course, my colleague Ludmila already mentioned the vision is for 100 years. We might not live in that time, but what we are doing today is we are doing for the future generations. We always need to think about this way, the sustainable development, and we are working for the future generations, and how we can work integrately every point, like water management, environment management, and the management plan with the coastal areas. Because in coastal areas in Bangladesh, there have been many problems, the surface water problems and groundwater, even the people are suffering due to climate change and environmental issues. When we see this kind of approach, we need to go to the rural areas. We need to understand their feelings. We should understand the main problems. We come back with the solutions. And it can be done in many ways. As a researcher, as a student activist, as a leader, even as your own individual purpose, because we have a participant from Satkira. He is very much interested because of his own problems in the areas. And he was sending the pictures, how the flash flood occurs in the areas, what kind of sufferings they are having problems in the areas. And you are just feel very bad because we are living in a city. We cannot reach to their problems. You cannot maybe understand in that way, from very personal way. If we have the personal interventions is needed. Can you go to the next slide, please, Ludmila? So as a leadership, there is 3 steps. 3 steps is you need to observe and then interpret and then intervene. We need to observe the situation and the problems, and then we need to interpret. And when this intervention is needed, we need to go there and learn and build a very adaptive capacity for the people at all levels of the organization. From it can be anyways, like from this executives, there can be some internships it can be happen, there can be research work can be happen, and all the people in the individual approach can work together to have one goals. Next slide, please. It's very interesting, this one, like this shifting towards the approach, because the thing is, like, we need to think about the future, you know, and the what data plan is about BDP 2100. So we need to have a vision for 100 years. We need to plan for the future conditions, and step by step, we need to act in the future terms, like the present terms. So we have one very interesting subject called Act Now. So what the people we did, we have mentioned what we are doing right now to reach the goals in the future. It can happen very small things, maybe the research, maybe read the publications, field study, or maybe reach out to the people. So whatever mindset we'll be doing in present, will have an effect in future. So if you already have a very approach and vision in the future, we can come back step by step in the present and have this situation, you know, we can really work on this Delta plan and find effective solutions, and maybe our vision will be fulfilled within the given time. Next slide, please. So another lifetime outcomes was from the session, a long-term plan for the coastal areas. It was very important, like I am from working in environmental pollutions, but we have learned the coastal problems in Bangladesh. And Alexia was there. She was a researcher for this Bangladesh Delta Action Plan in terms of coastal areas. She has shown us the vulnerability in the areas and how it really affects. Then what I really did about the climate refugees and climate migration, I worked on this subject and I published a paper in terms, and still publishing. And I actually, in Dhaka University, there's a conference. I published the paper and the outcomes, because climate migrants are refugees are the new terms, and Bangladesh will be very effective, like they will be the sufferer in the long run. You know, every time the vulnerabilities can happen in the rural areas and the suburban areas, and we need to think about that. And of course, we have this conference ongoing. So we will be, as in participants, we will arrange multilateral programs, workshop, and conference to reach out our goals. So next, I will show the outcomes. Like one of the sheets we have practiced, like we have the short-term goals, long-term goals, and also the mid-term goals, like to reach the problems. So we have differentiations in urban and water, and also the coastal areas zones, like what we can do in these purposes. Then Shishir, my colleague, he will join for the next presentation, like next term. Yeah, Shishir, you are right now.
Ludmila, okay, so we are discussing how youth can contribute to BDP 2100. First of all, before there is a conference in the next May, which was supposed to held a lot earlier. However, so we were discussing how can youth contribute to this BDP 2100 conference. So before we should learn about the BDP 2100, we should aware our surrounding people about BDP 2100. Then during the conference, there is a youth panel organized by the BDP 2100 youth action track participants, and then we can teach our ideas to the people. We can network with the people, and after the conference, we can write about our experiences. We can publish paper. We can make groups of learning BDP 2100 years of progress and whatnot. Ludmila. This is a Miro board prepared by the Youth Action Track participants. We are divided into 3 hotspots: coastal, river system, and urban. Here, participants have mentioned some of their ideas about what to do with this BDP 2100, how we can achieve BDP 2100 in different sectors. If you see the coastal area, there is biodiversity, there is a cyclone-induced storm, and people are saying about the climate-friendly businesses. And in the river system, people are talking about water management, salinity water management. Then someone is saying keep the water waste-free. At the theme urban, we can see there is a water governance, a coordinated water governance is mentioned, water pollution control, a green city is being talked about in the this urban theme. Ludmila. Then we, as my previous colleague Prantor has said, there was a thing called Act Now. So Act Now is the thing we were supposed to talk about, something that we can do right after the BDP 2100 Youth Action Track, which is which can be anything, which can be a peer group discussion, it can be a research, it can be a business, it can be a movement. Here we can show some of our slides, especially from 3 of the presenters today. We'll show our Act Now slide. I have given this plan in the Youth Action Track, that is Act Now. Firstly, I am a student of urban planning. I study spatial planning. As BDP will be integrated with spatial planning as well, I am firstly interested in the spatial planning policies and practices. I will study how BDP 2100 will reshape spatial planning and policies in Bangladesh. Then I have already informed my fellow students and discussed with my academic circle. Then we identified some problems, the knowledge gaps, where we can more study about the problems and identify the gaps. Then during the conference, which was supposed to happen before, but it will take place in May, we'll participate in the conference and meet with people who are knowledgeable, top scholars and executive agencies. And then we will organize lectures and knowledge sharing workshop of BDP 2100 delegates with government officials and future planners in different planning schools in Bangladesh. Ludmila will continue from here.
I think one of my biggest takeaways from the Bangladesh Delta Plan Youth Action Track was that no matter how small our action is, let's start somewhere. As a student, I often felt intimidated in the presence of professionals and PhD students in the Youth Action Track, thinking that maybe I won't be able to make that big of an impact when I worked in the Youth Action Track. But I was always encouraged to act now. We had this prompt that what would you do tomorrow? In line with that, I realized that even as insignificant as I might be, I could still contribute to the conference, to the Delta Plan. So what I wanted to do was I wanted to reach out to my peers. I am currently a university student. So for me, it's easier to talk to my friends or perhaps my seniors and juniors. So I wanted to conduct focus group discussions and key informant interviews with people who are perhaps well informed about the Delta Plan. For example, it could be my professors or it could be experts that I have worked with. And I wanted to know about what they knew about the Bangladesh Delta Plan and how they viewed the problems of their hotspots, and if they had any sort of information that they wanted to be relayed to the people in charge, the authority figures, the policy makers. I, as a participant of the Youth Action Track, was given this opportunity to be able to interact with policymakers and experts one-on-one. So as their representative, I wanted to collect the inputs from my fellow students and people I am interacting with on a daily basis and relay those information to people who were in charge of making the Bangladesh Delta Plan and implementing it. So my idea was rather simple, understand what the youth around me are thinking about the Bangladesh Delta Plan, and if they wanted me to relay a message to people in charge of implementing it, I would do that. So I wanted to be the middleman. So that's what I intend to do before the conference. Hopefully it will take place in May, and I'll conduct my focus group discussions and KII, and we'll be able to relay my findings in the conference to the experts. I will be giving the floor to my next participant. Before that, I just want to inform everyone that the mentor link is still open. Please participate in it. Prantor Bhaiya, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. So what we will be doing right now, before joining this session, actually, the Bangladesh Delta Action Plan Youth Group participants, I have little knowledge. Even though I'm doing PhD, I have very little knowledge. This kind of holistic approach or mission have been done by the Bangladesh government. And if you see, already mentioned earlier, the Bangladesh Delta is very huge and there's so many steps. Everybody can have their intervention. Everybody can have their points to work together. So what I have learned through the sessions, like I also have a role to play with. Even I am doing PhD or research, maybe I can link my research to the Bangladesh Delta Action Plan in some ways. It doesn't matter, it need to be big or something very visible, but I can do it individually. Rather, next step can be to talk with the peer groups, talk with the other individuals, or maybe the other youth groups, so that we can work together hands with hands. And what I did in the Act Now session, because I love gardening, and in the COVID times, I suffered so much, mainly because of the mental health issues. And I thought, why not doing the gardening stuff? And we could have a sustainable city gardening and invest in the green. It's not only make me happy, and also improve my health and well-being. So what I did in the approach, I started to post the gardening stuff and green city and green space, why it is important in the Facebook, in the social media. It's not only me right now working on this. My friends, they're very much interested. They every time comes with me, help me in this regard, what kind of plants they can grow in the balcony, even in their free spaces, and make our city green. If you see, our Dhaka city is very gray, and most of the times I have problems with the breathings because in this time. And you have seen Dhaka has mentioned one of the worst city in terms of pollutions, And also yesterday I read articles, even in sound pollution, Dhaka is number one. So we need to make, it's our responsibility, it's not only the government, we also have an individual responsibility to act towards the sustainable developments, towards make a city or the areas more green. So what we can do, we can work on the individual levels as well as with the groups to make this work happen. So why I'm investing my time to make my city gardening or investing in green? See, it's about the green space development and ecological restoration. Like if we use our spaces, the whole area can be having green infrastructure, as well as the ecological, there can be new species, the birds and the bees, they can have a place to stay on. And also, with the sustainable communities, we can grow the vegetables, because I share my vegetables with my relatives, with my next door people. And we have a very good understanding in the community level. And it's very great, And the thing is, like, it's not only for the community, it's also for the environmental benefits. If we have more greeneries in our cities, it's not only, it will be look green or beautiful, there will be some other improvement in the air quality. Also, the urban farming can be happening, and also the effects the suburban areas. And one of the most important thing that I have realized during the COVID times is the mental well-being. What I have suffered so much, the tensions and the stress, whenever I go and see the greens, it really makes me happy. When I am happy, it really gives me to work on the next stages. So I shared this Act Now movement to for the towards the green, towards the sustainable future, to work hands on hands. And this can be happen in also in other cities. Like if we really share this approach with the people living outside of the city or the rural areas and give them the mushrooms or give them the plants, they can just have these plants nearby their homes, and they can have their own fruits, own veggies, and it's organic, and they can just have the same kind of food. Like it's not kind, they don't need to eat every time the meat. They can have the fresh vegetables and fresh fruits from their own gardens. I shared these thoughts with other researchers, other people. I really got very good feedback. So the next stage for mine will be to work with the researcher and also with the other youth groups to apply this holistic approach in other cities or other areas to see how the people think about that. So I think next stage will Ludmila and Shishir will share their individual approach and what they had learned so far from these outcomes. Ludmila?
Shishir Bhaiya will be next. Bhaiya, please share your individual inputs. Thank you.
Prantor Bhaiya had a very personal experience to share. My one is rather professional. I worked with the Ministry of Housing and Public Works a few months ago, where I have worked with the team who are preparing the Paira Kuakata Comprehensive Regional Plan. So for the plan, I have gone to the coastal area, the Kuakata Purushoba. I have done some PRA, and there I saw the planners being prepared and people are giving their opinion, and planners are analyzing with their knowledges. And then fast forward to last October, when I joined the White Youth Action Team, I have started learning about the Delta Plan, how the planners who are involved in Delta Plan thinking about the future of Bangladeshi special planning. Then I am seeing a gap between the current knowledge of special planning and the what the government and the researchers are thinking about. So there is a gap that is not being identified or being identified, but not known enough. So this is the gap I have found very interesting to work with. I am interested in arranging workshops and knowledge sharing between the Bangladesh Delta Plan professionals and the professionals who are currently practicing special planning in the urban areas, rural areas, or the national level or city level. So this is the one thing that interests me. And also I have said earlier that there are future planners. Now BDP 2100 is a long-term goal. It will be happening until 2100, and maybe we do not get to live by then. But the future planners who are currently in the schools, they need to know about the Delta Plan, how to incorporate the planning with their current academic practices, future professional works. So this is also another thing that interests me, that we need to teach those kids who are in the schools and are planning schools, so that they can get the idea of BDP 2100. Thank you, Udmila.
Thank you. I'll be the last one sharing my experience and interest. So I am pursuing a degree in development studies. So either I'm always on the policy side of things, or I am dealing with development economics. So in my third year of university, I'm still working in this research project. As someone who has lived in Dhaka, we all are familiar with the rivers it has, from Buriganga to Turak to Balu, which is right next to my paternal house. We are all very familiar with rivers, and we're also very familiar with the fact that these rivers have died over time, much due to our negligence and pollution. So I worked in a research project that focused on the river pollution and illegal encroachment on the rivers that, over time, the boundaries of the rivers decreased. And this is why we're seeing dying rivers. I was interested in the Bangladesh Delta Plan because, as I say, this plan focuses on management of water resources. So I wanted to see how this plan would integrate perhaps making these rivers alive again. So for me, I am personally very interested to see whether we can revive the rivers that we have lost, and how, if we can, how we would economically compensate for the losses of the water resources, and if we would see any kind of taxation for the pollution, and how this framework will play out in respect to the market as well as to the governance and institutions. So for me personally, that's something I'm very passionate about, reviving the rivers in Dhaka. And perhaps if we start with the rivers in Dhaka, we'll soon be able to do the same for all the other rivers who are suffering from pollution and encroachment all over Bangladesh. And apart from that, I had the experience of visiting cyclone shelters in coastal areas. I visited Borishal last year, and I went to really remote areas and had the opportunity of talking to people. And, as someone who is rather privileged living in a city and not being affected by natural disasters at all, it was rather eye-opening to me hearing about how, it was very normal for them to lose their lives or perhaps everything they owned in natural disasters. So that was also one thing that interested me to start working regarding the Bangladesh Delta Plan. That's all for my interest sharing. We'll now move on to the next part of the session, which will involve the audience. In this part of the session, I would like to open the floor to the audiences. We'd be just acting as facilitators. We have two questions in this screen. I hope everyone can see it. The first question is, we want to know what you are currently working in and whether you have integrated the Bangladesh Delta Plan in your work previously, or if you're doing it currently. If not, do you have plans of integrating the Bangladesh Delta Plan in your line of work in the future, and how you would do it? The second question is rather interesting. If you are a youth, what do you expect the older generation, or perhaps the administrators who are older by default, to do for you in implementing the Bangladesh Delta Plan? And if you are not a youth, if you're from the older generation, as I have mentioned, what expectations do you have from us in implementing the Delta Plan? You can raise your hands to express your opinions in answer to the questions. So we will be taking answers now. Thank you. Does anyone want to participate in answering these questions? Okay, I see one hand. Yes, Rubayat, you can talk. You can unmute yourself and talk. I'll mute myself.
Hello, I am a student of development studies. So my profession would be a student of fourth year undergrad. I have not previously integrated the Bangladesh Delta Plan in any sort of work that I am doing, but yes, I do have plans since, I am already studying development. I know how important environment can be. And in the future, we would have no other option than to, incorporate environment into whatever we're doing and really consider, what the consequences would be of depleting it. My expectations from the older generation would be that, how we see that even still, we see that policies are being implemented in line with economic development only. But I think it's about time we see the environmental aspect, and we prioritize the environmental aspect of whatever development we are pursuing. Yeah, that would be it. Thank you.
Thank you for your answer. If I could summarize, in answer to your second question, you are referring to the age-old debate of environment versus economy, and if environment will be getting the upper hand in the future years in this debate. Okay, do we have any other questions? Does anyone else want to answer the questions?
Hi, can I add something to this?
Yes, definitely you can.
Right, this is Rabbani joining you from York, one of the small cities in the UK. I'm doing my fourth year of my PhD and trying to understand why people remain in environmentally stressful conditions. And when I was actually studying these policy documents, this is a massive document, so I was trying to grasp what are the actual messages in it and how I can integrate. The main concern that I have found or come across with this document is assessing the risks. What I mean is future risks. Like we can't really, the risks that have been mentioned in this document, it's of course it's scientific, I understand it, but then being able to imagine the practicality, how this risk is going to be in end of this century, and being able to plan something based on something that we can't even imagine clearly, it's quite difficult. So what I have found is policy building wise, is Bangladesh has got many national level policies. When people don't have specific ideas about what's going to happen end of this century, the policies that we have is actually national level, very much concentrated and very much like, yes, we need to do this, but how to implement these policies has got a very kind of wide area that I did not actually see in the document. And to answer your questions, this is how I'm trying to engage the policy aspect of this Bangladesh Delta Plan, that the document we have, the policies we have, how government are trying to respond, how other organizations are trying to grasp what needs to be done. The second thing is what I expect from the youth. I think what I have found is when you're talking about locally led adaptation, the biggest concern is building up the knowledge at the local level. If I'm talking about adaptation of some area, let's talk about Satkira. People from Dhaka, if they want to go to Satkira and try to build a policy for Satkira Upazila or Satkira Union Parishad, Shamnagar Upazila, or some other local like union parishads, it's quite difficult. So we need to build a knowledge at the local level. So the universities, the colleges that we have in Satkira, they need to engage. And these conferences like this needs to go that grassroots level so that the knowledge actually starts to grow at that level. And I think in that particular knowledge building aspect, I think the youth in those vulnerable areas, they need to engage and they need to participate. And I think these conferences needs to go very much to the grassroots level in future. And I think the youth, the people like you, can contribute to that enormously. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for your answer. If I could add to your last point, I've had the experience of working in a project in Koira. What we did was after Amphan hit the area, a lot of the trees were destroyed. So we participated in a mass tree plantation program. And while working in that program, I had the opportunity of interacting with a lot of youth from that particular area. And I think they're actually doing a lot of good work. And with the right encouragement and the right guidance, I think we will soon be seeing that bottom up knowledge as well as action from the areas which are actually impacted by the natural disasters the most. Is there anyone else who would like to answer these questions? Are there any questions in the chat? Prantor Bhai, if you could let me know, since I'm not being able to see the chat.
So there we have a problem with the Mentimeter, I think, but we have solved. I'm really sorry for that because there was two questions in every part, but most of us, because of the technical issues, we cannot see the second questions. Maybe we didn't get the answer. Lumila, I already sent you the questions like in your message box. You can show the participants about the outcomes. And because of the technical issues, maybe the second question is missed, but we can ask to the audience and how they think about that individually, or does they have any interest?
Bhaiya, have you sent me the graphics in the message box?
Yes, yeah.
Okay, then I'll stop sharing my screen for a minute so that I can download it.
So if you guys have more questions or any kind of inquiries, you can just ask us, because as youth members, we already have two outcomes, like individual approach as a group approach, because what we learned from the overcome interventions and even from this session is to work together, but we should everybody should have their own individual outcomes, like what they think about that. Even right now, I'm doing also PhD in my third year. My topic is a bit different from the Bangladesh Delta Action Plan, but I have find out one of the interests, sub-interest you can call out, the climate migrants and the climate refugees in Bangladesh. And I was searching for the numbers. Numbers are very much alarming because Bangladesh is a flat-prone areas, and in recent times, we can have lots of people coming from the areas to the city, and city will be full of the population. We will have lots of problem, and it's very important how the policymakers, the government, and the researchers think about that. We need to think about the future, right? We need to think about how they can do the approaches for the outcomes happening in near future. I see a questions. How do you propose the gaps in the BDP 2000? Can you be overcome and be better for the youths to participate more actively? Yeah, Shahina Akhtar. Thank you for your questions. Thank you. For myself, what I can say that for youth men engagement, we need to do the workshops or this kind of program more often, because for the first time, I just know about the Delta Action Plan just few months ago, 5 or 6 months ago. I was so surprised. Even I am working in environmental field, I don't know about this one. So it's not only me. Even in the conference in Dhaka University, when I meet other fresh graduates and other fresh minds, they also are not aware. So one of the things can be, we need to aware more people, even from the primary schools, secondary schools. They can have one topic about the Delta Action Plan, because many of the things in our country are related to this plan. It's for the future generations. For the youth, they need to have their voice on that, because what the policymakers, the government are doing is actually for us and for the future generations. If we don't find the problems and the faults and raise our voice, maybe we cannot reach the same, areas and the same outcomes. So we need to raise our voice from what I really think, and everybody should have their own individual approach. We always think that the government need to do something, the policymakers to do something. Of course, we need to push the government, the policymakers, also with us. It's also with the researchers and the people around us, how we can incorporate everything together. Lulmila, are you ready?
I
Thank you
am
so
ready,
much, Shahina
but
Akhtar.
I would like to answer the question of Shahina Akhtar. I think there are three issues that we need to focus on when we talk about active youth participation. The first one is access. For a lot of us, it is hard to get access to the policymakers or the administrators. The second one is the power distance. People who are in power, how much do they actually represent their communities or people who are in need? So that's one thing we need to keep in mind. And the last one would be information asymmetry. The one thing that Prantar had talked about, he did not know about the Bangladesh Delta Plan. It was only 5 months before that he found out about it. So that kind of information asymmetry still exists. I could say that a lot of my friends who are working in the development sector, they still don't have any idea about the Delta Plan. So that kind of information asymmetry also needs to be removed if we're talking about active participation. I will now move on to the next part of the session. We'll try to visualize the answers we have received in the Mentimeter. I am so sorry that we could not get the answers to two of the questions, but we would like to get that from you after visualizing the data. Okay. Is my screen visible?
Yes, yeah.
So the first question we asked that, have you heard about the Bangladesh Delta Plan? I am really surprised to see that 80% of people have heard about it. I guess in a conference like this, where we are all passionate about climate change, this is something that could be expected, but I think if you would just go out in a general assembly and if you ask people if they knew about the Delta Plan, the answer wouldn't be that promising. For the next question, which hotspot are you from or are interested in? We have the answers ranked. So, okay, the first ranked hotspot would be the drought-prone areas. The second one is Howard and
Ludmila, can I intervene you in this moment?
Yeah, sure.
Got very interesting after I'm really sorry that we didn't get the second answer, but few of the participants, they already shared their answer. And the first position is actually the urban areas. Because maybe we are staying in the cities because they are most interested about the urban areas. And they are also interested about the flash floods, and also the barren and the drought-prone areas. These are the first, second, third position they have chosen. Ludmila.
Oh, okay, that's really interesting. Okay, so I think we do have some answers for this one. Okay. So one problem that you would like to see solved, and if you have any suggestion for the solution: access to nutritious food from resilient and sustainable food sources. So I think we're talking about food security and sustainable food. The next one is sustainable development in Chittagong Hill Tracts. I think that is very relevant given that we have all seen news of how we're destroying nature to establish, tourist spots or resorts in Chittagong Hill Tract. And perhaps we're doing this in the short run and not realizing how much of an impact it might have on the nature, but in the long run, this will catch up to us. And the next one is flash flood. So we have three thematic areas here. Do we have an answer? Okay, so we don't have an answer for this.
So we had, I'm sorry again. So it's very interesting for the youth involvement. The participants are saying that we need to raise awareness and we need to talk about the problems and also the implementation part and the policy making. They are coming, like they are saying, raise awareness and implementation and the policy making. And that's the thing I found out from the questionnaires. And also from our session that we have learned that this how youths can be involved is always like tell each other. It's not only us versus you, it's like all together in one approach, And I always think it's not only this Delta Action Plan, there can be other youth groups and we need to work side by side together and to reach one common goal. Ludmila, what do you think about that? What we did so far?
I think when we worked in the youth action track, we had people from a lot of diverse research interest areas. And a lot of the time, it would turn into this, I am more interested in this research area and I don't really like what you're talking about. But ultimately, at the end of the day, we are all part of the same ecosystem, the same nature, and all these problems together, when they're solved, we'll be able to have the life that we want to. So I think that's something I have learned from the program. No matter how different my area of interest is, it is still important to listen to the other person who is working on a different research area. And I must say that personally, I have learned about a lot of new topics and I have seen people being passionate about it. And it has in turn made me passionate about that issue as well. So that is one of the biggest takeaway from our youth action track. Networking with people, learning about different interests, and understanding that at the end of the day, we have one common future and there is only one place that we call home, the earth. It's the same for everyone. So despite our diversity, at the end of the day, we need to come together to save it. So we still have 6 minutes for the session to close. What I want to do here is that if you have any questions, you can definitely raise your hands. And we'd just like to say that we're not experts, so we might not have the answers to all the questions. But what we do have is that we have access to experts. So if you would want a specific question to be addressed to the experts, you can leave it in the chat box or you can just relay it to us. We will ask the experts and get back to you through email if that is something you want to do. So that's an option open to everyone. So I'll leave the floor to the audience. If you have questions, you can raise hands or you can also leave it in the chat box if you want it to be addressed to an expert. Thank you.
So one more thing I also want to share, like Delta conference is happening in May. So I want to encourage more people to come up and share with us. And if you have anything to say or anything to share, you can just contact us. Like me and Ludmila will share our email ID in the chat box. And if you have any questions or you want to work with us, feel free, because we always think that working with everybody or more people is better for one common goal, right? And what Lumina said, we have only one planet. We don't have another place to go. And what I really feel bad about, people invest more money to go to Mars and doing this and that, not invest in greeneries, not invest to make this world more green and more sustainable.
Sorry to interrupt. I think I see a raised hand, so we'd better take that question. Please go ahead and ask your question. I see a raised hand. If I'm not wrong, it's Miss Anastasia. You can go ahead and ask the question. Thank you.
Hi, thank you so much, Ludmila. Sorry, I won't put my camera on. My internet is a little bit shaky, but thank you for this wonderful presentation. And I just wanted to do a quick invitation more so than a question. I'm currently head of policy at the Global Resilience Partnership. And we ran last year at COP26 what we called Resilience Hub, where we tried to convene all of the different actors and on resilience within the same platform, virtual and also physical space at COP26. And we're aiming to do that again at COP27. So we're going to run a resilience hub again in Sharm el-Sheikh in Egypt, but we'll also have a dedicated virtual space like you're having now for Gobeshona, both at COP27, but also leading up to COP27. And we're very much hoping to connect the local actors to these global policy spaces, and youth activism, youth voices is one of the key areas where we're hoping to major on as well at the following COP, at the COP27. And we're hoping that maybe we can keep in touch and connect. And so this is an invitation for all of those who are interested to connect your local solutions to the global policy spaces to be engaged in the Resilience Hub. Either prior to it or at sharing your outcomes or solutions. So please feel free to contact me directly, and I'll post my email in the chat box. And I will also post the link to the Resilience Hub from last year in the chat in case you want to find out more about it and what we did and achieved last year and what we're hoping to amplify in the coming year. So thank you so much. Sorry, it was less of a question, more of a pitch, but I really enjoyed this session and I really hope we can start our collaboration actively now and throughout the whole year and achieve big things before we even get to COP27. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We have left our contact details in the chat box and we'll be reaching out to you hopefully, and hopefully we can work together. Thank you for your invitation. We are at the end of our session. To sum up, we have tried to discuss what we have learned as a part of the Youth Action Track. We have also shared our own interests and what we have worked on. Other than that, we tried to engage the audiences. I was quite surprised by some of the results, and there were definitely some really good questions. And I think we all are in agreement with the fact that we need to involve the youth as much as we can in all levels of implementing the Bangladesh Delta Plan. And other than that, there are definitely some gaps in the Delta Plan. It's just in the initial phase of being planned, and then when implementation is the next stage, we'll definitely see a lot of changes. And when people work in the field, we'll definitely see discretion being used as well. So I personally am interested to see how the future will unfold and what will happen in the next 100 years. I'll not be alive to see it, but I hope whoever is alive will be able to see good results, and perhaps what we're doing will add, even if it's small, it will be some contribution towards saving the world that we have. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining. I had a great time. I hope you had too.